Hi, Amy Elizabeth, somatic and intuitive healer here,
And Kate Roberts.
former Navy journalist and current communication specialist. She is here to help translate in part. She asks amazing, insightful questions. I love all the comments we've been getting and all the feedback. So welcome. We are a little bit behind the schedule I committed to my women's circle on with getting this up on Saturday, because it turns out that we also were living in an eclipse along with everybody else.
Yes, it does affect us. We are not, there's no force field that protects us from the forces.
And just as Mars and Mercury were doing their dance, which bookended the actual peak of the eclipse, and then they came together and had a little post-game discussion. We are subject to that just like everyone else. So we kind of talked about the major movements in our last video that were the eclipse peduncle. And now we're going to talk about this birthing. So the peduncle is this tight squeeze that moves us through a birthing canal in an eclipse. We started this eclipse season on October 14th when we had a solar eclipse. So it was a dark moon. It was associated with the South Node. It was associated with letting go, shifting, shedding. And now we're in this space of this closing moon, which is also an opening moon. And it's also a halfway point moon because the wheel keeps turning, the cycle keeps going. So if you want to look back, you're going to go back to April 30th, 2022. And I'm sorry, this isn't a closing moon. This is the last quarter of closing the cycle. It's closing the eclipse cycle that started in 2022. This moon cycle started April 30th, 2022 with a solar eclipse in Taurus at 10 degrees. So this is the final kind of reveal, because this is a full moon. And we forget that full moons are oppositions. We look up at them and we're like, oh, it's so beautiful and it's so bright and it's so big and it's so sexy and full moon.
Mm-hmm.
And we forget that the energy of it is oppositional.
And how is that? Where is the other energy coming from?
The sun.
Okay.
Because
they're not doing their thing, their little dance in harmony, though. It's opposition.
No, it's oppositional.
Okay.
Because we only have a full moon when it sits opposite of the sun to reflect the light of the sun.
There they are together, happy.
No, they're on opposite sides.
Okay, that doesn't mean that they're in confrontation, though, or does it?
It kind of depends on what the other energies are at play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the other energies that were at play surrounding this full moon lunar eclipse started with Mars and Scorpio. So he moved into his rulership. He moved out of his detriment in Libra, where he wants to dismantle relationships, take things apart, and also simultaneously is unable to assert himself into his traditional rulership in Scorpio. Now, Mars in Scorpio is delicious because his specialty is the transmutation of forms via the shifting and shaking, which redistributes energy.
Okay.
So there can be an energy realignment when Mars is in Scorpio, because he wants to see the scorpionic energy do what the scorpionic energy is meant to do, which is create change, to create transformation, to change things. And as an action guy, he's like, let's go do this thing.
Yeah.
So Mars is in Scorpio. He's in rulership. So he is the guy in his power. And he was opposite Jupiter in Taurus, who is retrograde.
And retrograde again is?
It looks like the planet is moving backwards, but it has to do with the fact that they're on a point in their elliptical where none of the planets actually physically move backwards. It's an energetic piece where they move backwards through the degrees because of where they're at in the path of their ecliptic.
Okay.
And so it's a time for us when we hear retrograde, there's an RE at the beginning of that word. So we're looking at other RE words. We're reviewing, we're renovating, we're rethinking, we're revisiting, we're restructuring. So with Jupiter and Taurus, this a grounded, practical, boots on the ground earth sign, Taurus is so much about our values and our relationship to the land, our relationship to the stuff. You know, we here are doing a big letting go of stuff as we settle in. We unpack stuff and things don't have a home. We fell in love with living very simply in the process of selling a home. And we don't know that we want to commit to having a lot of stuff around again.
No.
Granted, we love having all of our books available because a library full of books.
Yes.
Win-win.
Makes a home.
Makes a home. So Mars and Jupiter are sitting across the cafeteria from each other. So essentially in this, Jupiter is like the party kid. Yeah. Right? Jupiter wants more, and has very little self-control.
Okay.
Mars can also lack self-control.
Yes.
Except Jupiter is a benefic and Mars is a malefic.
What does that mean?
The benefic, that's a benefit. Malefic, they're traditionally seen as the bad, scary energies. When we lived in a world where there were good feelings and bad feelings, rather than just, well, your feelings are messengers. They're giving you information.
Okay.
You know, the cat is giving us information. He's letting us know how he feels. You know, emotions are energy in motion. And if we only want to pay attention to the energy that we enjoy, that's Jupiter in his shadow.
Okay.
Because too much of a good thing is still too much. Yes. Too much food and not enough movement will still create health problems.
Right. It's a good message for kids on Halloween tonight.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Happy Samhain.
Don't eat too much
Don't eat too much sugar. So they're sitting across each other, and Mars can tend to feel like the jock. He's like the guy who wants to physically assert himself.
Right.
And he doesn't have a lot of time for the party kids, because can you necessarily be at your best athletically if you're hanging out with the party kids?
No.
So there's this energy. And like you said, it doesn't have to be that way.
No.
It can be can you turn those energies in and use them?
Yeah.
But this Mars and Jupiter opposition can lead to, in its shadow, a lot of sharp, nasty words.
Okay.
It's also a lunar eclipse. It's this light being shined on the unconscious things coming out, because Mercury's involved in this also, keep in mind.
Right.
Via our words, via the sharp cutting things we say, because Mars and Mercury conjoin the day after the eclipse. Okay. And in between that, Mercury enters exact opposition with Jupiter. So there's all this conflict. There's the Mars-Jupiter opposition. There's the Sun-Moon opposition. There is the Mercury-Jupiter opposition. And Jupiter is grounding all these things. Jupiter is bringing it into our everyday life and saying, well, do you really value this? Because here it is showing up in how you're communicating with the people you love, how you're interacting with your belongings. So let's check your alignment, because conveniently with a full moon, there's all this illumination. Okay. Right? The sun is our consciousness and the moon is our emotions. Okay. Which can feel always like an opposition when they're full, because the consciousness is like, here is all these emotions that you maybe don't want to deal with. Right?
Here you go.
If this sounds familiar to anybody, please raise your hand. Let us know. Full moons are an emotional time. The moon calls to the water in us. There is a reason that the water element is associated with emotions, and why Cancer as a form of water. We've got our 3 water signs: Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces.
Okay.
Cancer is flowing water.
Mhm.
Cancer are you're just too sensitive.
Okay.
Anybody out there resemble that remark? You're just too sensitive. Because if you just allow Cancer to let the thing flow,
Mhm.
it will flow past,
Right.
and it will be done. Scorpio now. Scorpio is the frozen water. It is a glacier. It is relentless in its movement.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to leave the landscape completely and totally changed. And it can do that through vengeful, spiteful, nasty means. It can also do it through sheer determination and commitment. Scorpio is a wonderful sign for commitment because of its intensity.
Yeah.
Scorpio is intense and deep and sexy. And it can be vengeful and spiteful and nasty. Scorpio, and I also want to say, not picking on my Scorpio birthdays.
Don't
Not
do it.
picking on any of my Scorpio sons out there. Everybody send Kate happy birthdays.
You don't have to.
It's okay. Totally do. And all of us have all 12 of the zodiac energies. Too often we get caught up in, well, I'm a this, because that's where your sun placement is. Your sun placement is about your conscious behavior. It's about the thought processes. Our moon placement is about our emotional behavior and our emotional safety and security.
Okay.
So if you're a parent out there looking for some astrological information and astrological basis to help your child, look at their moon. You don't need to look at anything else. Just look at their moon. We happen to have a Virgo moon that lives with us. It has chosen us as its caretakers until it's 18. And it is a denning creature. It wants to den when it's upset. It wants a lot of physical touch. Those are all very, very true for Virgo moons. It's an earth sign. It wants to physically feel better so it can face its emotions. And once it physically has itself managed, it can do the thing. Cancer moons, just let us cry. Just let us get it all out. And once it has moved through us, we're good to go. We can move into a place of taking that energy and utilizing it. So when you look at a moon, that's what that is. So when I say Scorpio, all of us have Scorpio energy. All of us can be obsessive, manipulative, vengeful, spiteful, nasty. It's just, what area of our life do we do it in? Just as all of us are capable of commitment, resourcefulness, depth, intensity, all of the really good, sexy, yummy things about Scorpio. So, and that goes for all the signs, all the energies. We are all light and shadow, and we are all 12 of them. We are all of the planets. We are all of the asteroids. We are all of the archetypal energies. We have things that we have bigger pipelines for. We've got, nice 6-inch pipeline for some energies, and we have only like a little 1/2 inch for others. And so this oppositional energy, it's really led up to, because of course the Mars-Mercury conjunction hits exactitude Sunday. It hit past tense. This is using words as weapons. This is weaponizing our words. Because it's a full moon, it's weaponizing the emotions. And it, just because it hit exactitude Sunday, doesn't mean we weren't already feeling that in the weekend leading up, that we could easily allow ourselves to be victimized in ways that had nothing to do with us. That was somebody else's bad day. It was somebody else's thing. It totally pushed on and triggered all of our stuff, and our victim energy made it ours. And really, it was just them doing them in their mess and us doing us in our mess. and it collided head on and made a big, huge mess. Important part. We've got some time. We have birthed out of the peduncle.
Thank goodness. It's a real tight squeeze
It was a
there.
real
and
tight
then
squeeze.
We made it.
Mm-hmm. And also the North Node is in Aries.
Okay.
So with this eclipse, the North Node, which I talk about as destiny,
Yep.
was beckoning us to take action.
Okay.
Because Mars, whom the North Node is answering to until further notice, is an action guy and in rulership right now.
Mm-hmm.
In a rulership position that when Mars is in Aries, it's just raw energy.
Mm-hmm.
When Mars is in Scorpio, though, it's transformational energy.
Okay. Well, that seems good. And it can be transformation for good or bad or just okay.
Yep. We get to access that transformation however we choose to.
Cool.
We can use that transformational energy to empower or disempower ourselves and others.
Mm-hmm.
We get to do it however we want to do it. But there is a call to take action towards destiny.
Okay.
Especially till like early January of 2025.
Wow, that's a long time.
18 and a half months.
Okay.
And then finally, our friend Persephone, for all of you Women's Circle folks, I know we were working with Persephone in October. She has shifted into Scorpio as of the 29th. So we were talking about Persephone as queen of the underworld and how when she makes that transition, when she steps into the fullness of herself, she sheds people pleasing. She sheds the little white lies that go along with people pleasing, because being in your own sovereignty requires that you take responsibility for your shit and you allow everybody else to take responsibility for theirs. And as long as we're in a place of white lies and people pleasing, we're not taking responsibility for our shit. And we're certainly not having the confidence in the people around them and around us to allow them to take responsibility for their shit. So Persephone shifting into Scorpio, she's going to also have some rulership here. She is going to really step into her like, I'm home. You know, when you've been on vacation and you've been on vacation with your mom. Love you, Mom. You've been on vacation with your mom and the two of you are kind of tiptoeing around each other because nobody wants to upset anybody else. And then you get home after vacation and Mom gets home to her house after vacation and you both kind of like, because we're so trained as women to people please and little white lie and to be in that place where we're bound, that coming home, which is where Persephone is right now, is such a tremendous relief. It allows us to soften. It allows us to be in our seat of power. So Persephone shifted into Scorpio on the 29th. Okay. Same day that Mars and Mercury conjoined in Scorpio. There's a lot of action in Scorpio here, people. Yeah. Bringing and making the unconscious conscious. And then finally, the last thing we're going to touch upon, somebody ripped the corner off of one of my sheets of paper.
Sometimes you have to make a grocery list. It's very tiny. So it should be fine. There's plenty of room to write all our planets in here. So it'll be fine.
Finally, today, on what the Wiccans celebrate as Samhain, one of the cross quarters, we have Venus in Virgo, who is in her detriment.
Okay.
Venus in Virgo is controlling and critical because she just can't understand why everybody doesn't see that if they all did it her way, right, it would be perfect. And if they could all just do it her way, everything would be more beautiful and more better.
I don't know anybody like that.
And she is trying retrograde Uranus in Taurus. So there's this Earth trine.
Okay.
Trines are supportive. They are expansive.
And trines are when 3 what's do what?
3. That's a grand trine.
Oh, okay.
When 3 what's do what?
Mhm.
That's a grand trine.
Okay, this is just
Just
regular
a straight up
old-
regular trine. What only involves 2.
Okay. And they are trining each other how?
Well, a trine always involves all of the same element. So this is an Earth trine.
Okay.
So it's a 120-degree spread
Okay.
between these two bodies.
Mhm.
And this is a call with Uranus to rebel,
Okay.
to recognize the places that we're paranoid. Uranus is in its shadow paranoid. Uranus in its shadow tends to be punitive in its reaction to things. It tends to be wildly like, oh my God, this thing happened. So therefore, here is the way that I am going to punish either the other person or myself.
Mm.
So I'm gonna deny myself something I enjoy.
Mhm.
And it's a type of self-castigation. It's really, it's not good.
Okay.
Uranus and its shadow. So if you've got hypercritical Venus, and Uranus is already answering to her because he's over at her house.
Yeah.
He's in Taurus. He's hanging out at her house, and she's a hot mess right now.
Right.
Because she's over in Virgo wanting to manage all the things. So this trine is going to potentially shine light on where we self-punish, because things aren't enough or things are too much.
Okay.
So trine is an aspect of Jupiter. It makes things bigger. So pay attention to the spaces that you are self-punishing, taking something that has been nourishing, good, right? Those are Taurian words, something that nourishes us, something that feeds our senses, feeds our ability to be in our bodies on the planet, which is not always an easy task. Where are you punishing yourself by taking those things away?
Okay.
Right? Which is not always the best or the greatest. That's happening at 21 degrees, which of course puts Uranus involved with this whole lunar eclipse also. So there's just a lot going on. Uranus was conjunct the moon for this eclipse. No, I'm sorry. He was not conjunct the moon. He was conjunct Jupiter.
Okay.
It's just a lot right now. It's a lot, people. Rest.
Drink a lot of water.
Take some naps.
Yeah.
Clean out your space. Right? We've got a lot. We're talking a lot of Earth stuff. We've talked about Jupiter and Taurus. We have talked about Uranus and Taurus. We've talked about Virgo, Venus and Virgo. So there's some like boots on the ground, shifting our physicality. And then when we look at Scorpio with Mars and Mercury and the sun, this is about shifting our actions towards our unconscious and the words that we use, paying attention to the words we use, because the words that we use, and when I say paying attention, I don't mean consciously picking out the words you use. When you are in a string talking, what are the words you use? Because that is a big indicator of where your unconscious is at and what you're digging through. Cool. Questions, comments, dedications?
No.
Requests?
That's good information.
Snide remarks?
Not for me.
All right. Leave us your questions, your comments, your dedications, or your comments. Did I say that already?
I think so.
Okay. Down in the comments, share us, like us, and we'll be back again hopefully next week. Sending fierce love to you all.
Thank you.
Good work.